Routines are a great thing. However, sometimes things beyond our control will get in the way of our routine, forcing it to change. If you're a digital artist, maybe the equipment or resources that you typically use might be no longer accessible. Maybe the tablet you use has stopped working, or maybe your internet connection has gone out and there'll be a significant amount of time before it returns. When things like this happen, the first instinct may be to worry, panic, or assume the worst, especially if you're autistic, in which case a change to your regularly scheduled routine may be more difficult to contend with compared to non-autistic people. But there may still be ways for you to be creative even when these things happen. Maybe your routine hasn't been disrupted and you just want to draw something a bit different. If any of what I've said describes your current situation, then this video might be for you. So my first suggestion would be to produce some vent art. Maybe something that reflects the situation you're currently in, either figuratively or literally. This video is similar to an earlier video I did last year, involving ways to overcome creative block. Like that video, I cannot claim that the advice in this video will definitely work for everyone, but it might give some people ideas on how to continue creating things when things beyond your control disrupt your natural flow state. I want to point out that when things like this do happen, such as internet cutting out or a piece of equipment stops working, it makes perfect sense to be displeased or angry about it. Even if nobody is to blame, routine disruptions like this are never pleasant. Having said that, it's definitely worth planning around these disruptions after the initial shock sets in. If you're producing work for somebody else, let them know in advance if you may be a little late producing something. If it's for reasons you can't control, then the other person can't reasonably get angry at you specifically, even if the news isn't something they want to hear. As I mentioned in a community post, the internet in my house went out recently, which inspired me to make this video. The outage didn't last too long, all things considered, but at the time I didn't know when the internet would be coming back on, so I planned around the possibility of the internet being out for a considerable number of days, maybe even a week. My first idea was to create something based around something not working, or in this case, someone not working. That someone being James. I'd originally considered drawing Thomas in this situation, but I worried that the final result with Thomas would look too much like the scene from Thomas Goes Fishing, so I decided to draw James in his place. His driver and fireman had placed a big out of order board in front of James's buffers, looking a bit like a name board, if James's name was out of order, which, last time I checked, it isn't. Thankfully, my internet wasn't out for too long, and by yesterday morning it had returned to working order. Hopefully James has returned to working order by the time this video is out and is pulling trains again. But, with all that said, here is the completed drawing. So, one possibility, if the equipment you typically use for drawing is no longer accessible for the time being, you could use a different medium to create art. I suppose I've been dabbling in different art forms on this channel in addition to the regular digital drawing, whether it be using Blender to create What If Thomas merchandise, or using games such as Trains and Rolling Line to create virtual model layouts. These are all valid forms of art, but with this video I decided to go with something else. So, I decided to draw something on paper. This was a bit daunting for me. Firstly, I don't have immediate access to the best art supplies. I'm sure there are some in my house, as I've definitely bought them for different purposes over the years, but I'm not sure where any of them went. In the end, I decided to pencil the drawing out on sketch paper and then colour the sketch with paint markers. I bought these paint markers a few years ago, with the main intention being for light customisation of merchandise, in particular painting the buffers on toy trains where they've been left unpainted. I've never used these specific paint markers for drawing a picture with before. Limitations breed creativity, and I certainly had limitations when drawing this piece. Firstly, the set of paint markers I have includes a limited number of colours. There's pretty much only one of each colour, no variants for different shades or hues. There isn't even a purple or a brown. I decided to work around this by drawing Thomas in full colour and leaving the background minimalist, with mainly just outlines signifying where the different background elements were. The orange marker did a lot of heavy lifting, acting as both the colour for the stone bridge and the bark of the trees. The other limitation I had involved the camera. Yes, this is the first time I've recorded myself drawing something in real life. Now you know I'm left-handed, I suppose. The limitation came from the fact that the SD card only has a limited amount of memory, and so I didn't want to spend too long on this piece. Not to mention the battery life. My camera isn't rechargeable, and as such it uses 4 AA's. Luckily the batteries didn't run out on me when I drew this piece, but it was something I was mindful of. If I wasn't recording myself drawing, I would have probably taken a bit more time and produced something a bit more polished. I do still sometimes draw on paper for fun, but again, recording the process is what made it daunting for me. And so, here is the completed image. My final piece of advice is that anything can be used as reference material. Maybe there will be a point where you don't have access to the internet to find a picture of a train, and maybe you don't have access to any photos of trains offline either. But something you can do is take an everyday object and draw it to look a bit like a train. I did something similar back during the lockdown, which seems so long ago now. In that drawing, I drew a stick of roll-on deodorant to look a bit like some sort of sci-fi gadget, and I thought I'd do something similar here. I had a nose around in my bathroom, trying to find things that weren't just box-shaped or cylinder-shaped, and actually had a distinct appearance. In the end, I went with a tub of Vaseline and drew it to look a bit more train-like. I had 2 things in mind when designing the Vaseline train, although I didn't look up images of them. The first was the eggliners, a type of model train originally made from using the ends of a model of an observation car, with model train companies eventually producing their own ready-to-run versions. The other was the bespoke rail cars used for shuttle services on the Stourbridge Town branch line. Unlike the eggliners, these are real things that you can ride in real life. I love how they look and would love to ride on one eventually. Maybe someday. I can imagine the comments right now. Man, it's got to the point where Rexeljet is drawing tubs of Vaseline just to avoid having to draw the logging locos. And yeah, maybe there's some truth to that. But above all else, a Vaseline train doesn't require meticulously planning out a backstory that repurposes elements from the source material whilst also staying true to the lore of the Railway series. Having said that, maybe there's a backstory to be had with this engine. It probably runs a short branch line similar to the Stourbridge Town branch, and has similar specifications to those engines. Maybe this drawing is set in a world where Unilever has a train operating company subsidiary. Or maybe it's just a complete coincidence that this engine sports the same colour scheme as Vaseline, and actually has nothing to do with it whatsoever. I decided to make the tub more train-like by giving it windows, buffers, headlights, an exhaust vent, and of course some wheels. And, with that said and done, here is the finished piece. And there we are. 3 examples of things you can do if things don't go the way you were expecting. This was a fun one, doing things I wouldn't normally do on this channel. Hopefully this video has given you ideas on what to do if you're an artist and something beyond your control has thrown a spanner in the works. If not, I hope you at least got some entertainment value out of this video. If this video was enjoyable, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe to the channel.